In this video, we are going to compare 3 HDMI 2.1 TVs from LG, Samsung and Sony and find out which is the best for Xbox Series X gaming. Hello everyone, Visatio from HD TV Test here. When I did my best TV for PS5 video, some of you asked me why the Xbox Series X was not included. Here's the reason. The Xbox Series X has a set of features different from the PS5, which favors some TVs more than others. So I decided to do a separate video, this video, and also for the money. Here, we have the most popular 4K TV models with HDMI 2.1 support from the top 3 TV brands in the UK. On your far left is the LG CX or C10 OLED, in the middle is the Samsung Q90T QLED, and on your far right is the Sony XH90 LED LCD television, also marketed as the BRAVIA X900H in the USA. All 3 TVs are 55 inches in screen size for a level playing field, and have been calibrated in HDR game mode, which offers the lowest input lag for the most responsive gaming experience. Before I proceed, I would like to thank UK online tech retailer box.co.uk for sponsoring this video. Even better, they are giving away one TV we deem the best for Xbox Series X, which will be revealed at the end of this video. The giveaway will run from now until the end of November. To enter, you must be aged 18 and over, no lying, and be based in the UK or the Republic of Ireland. To participate, please follow the link in the YouTube description below, which will also outline the terms and conditions. Good luck! Right, many of the core findings in my best TV for PS5 video will still apply for the Xbox Series X, so let's do a quick recap. In game mode with a 60Hz video signal, the Samsung Q90T had the lowest input lag, followed by the LG CX, then the Sony XH90. At 120Hz, all 3 TVs were neck and neck, with a latency of around 6.5 milliseconds, which is super responsive. In game mode, the LG CX was able to maintain true blacks without any halation due to OLED's pixel level light control, whereas the local dimming on the Samsung Q90T suffered the most, resulting in more blooming than the Sony XH90 despite having more zones. At the other end of the contrast ratio spectrum, the Samsung Q90T was able to go brightest, while the LG CX was dimmest full screen owing to OLED's ABL or automatic brightness limiter circuitry, with the Sony X900H somewhere in between. Needless to say, bright HDR scenes in games looked the most impactful on the Samsung Q90T, bolstered by quantum dot technology which, together with the TV's high peak brightness, delivered the highest color volume. In HDR game mode, especially at 4K 120Hz, most motion interpolation cannot be deployed, while backplane insertion would darken HDR too much, so we are down to the inherent motion clarity of these televisions. Motion appeared cleanest on the LG CX, thanks to OLED's near-instantaneous pixel response time, followed by the Sony XH90, then the Samsung Q90T, which looked blurriest due to VA black smearing and color ghosting. As far as gradation was concerned, the Samsung Q90T was smoothest, followed by the LG CX, then the BRAVIA XH90, which is not equipped with the smooth gradation decontouring filter implemented on higher-end Sony televisions. Screen uniformity was the cleanest on the LG CX, with the Sony XH90 a close second, which is very impressive for an LED LCD television. Our Samsung Q90T retail unit manifested obvious dirty screen effect and FALD grid patterns, not to mention slow rolling scan lines at certain backlight intensities. In terms of HDMI 2.1 gaming features, the Sony XH90 or X900H still hasn't received the necessary firmware update to support ALLM and VRR, whereas the LG CX and the Samsung Q90T could do so out of the box. That said, both the LG and the Samsung exhibited gamma shifts in VRR mode, since the native gamma response of OLED and LCD panels varies according to the refresh rate. The LG CX is also waiting for a firmware update to fix some glitches happening between 90 plus and 120 frame rates in VRR mode. All 3 TVs could accept and display 4K at 120Hz video signal, but the Sony XH90 or X900H was unable to resolve this single-pixel 4K resolution test pattern at 120Hz refresh rate, putting it at a disadvantage versus the LG CX and the Samsung Q90T when it comes to rendering fine detail at 4K 120Hz. That's expected to be more common on the Xbox Series X, which has a more powerful CPU and GPU than the Sony PS5. The Xbox Series X will also support Dolby Vision gaming in the future following a firmware update, meaning that the LG CX and the Sony XH90, which support Dolby Vision, will have the upper hand over the Samsung Q90T, which doesn't. However, note that the Sony XH90 or X900H cannot support both Dolby Vision and 4K 120Hz at the same time. You must choose one or the other in the HDMI signal format submenu, and unlike the LG CX and the Samsung Q90T, it doesn't have HGIG to fall back on either. The LG CX has its own limitations, in that Dolby Vision will be disabled if AMD FreeSync Premium was engaged. But since LFC or low frame rate compensation also works through the open standard HDMI Forum VRR format, which is supported on the Xbox Series X, there's really no reason to choose AMD FreeSync and forego Dolby Vision. Our final point concerns the use of a 2020 model AV receiver with HDMI 2.1 support together with the Xbox Series X. Following the initial panic over an incompatible HDMI 2.1 chipset on these AV receivers from Denon, Marantz, and Yamaha, it has emerged that the Sony PS5 is apparently not affected according to our industry contacts who had early access to the console, while the RTX 30 series cards can be fixed by NVIDIA drivers, leaving the Xbox Series X as the one truly incompatible source device with 4K 120Hz video signal. Because the Xbox Series X doesn't have another separate audio output besides its solitary HDMI port, the workaround is to use eARC on the TV, and depending on your individual requirements, the LG CX or the Sony XH90 might be better. The LG CX offers 4 HDMI 2.1 ports, so even if you use HDMI 2 for eARC, you still have 3 HDMI inputs to connect your Xbox Series X and 2 other HDMI 2.1 sources, for example, the PS5 and a PC with RTX 30 series card. Using eARC on the Sony XH90 means that you'll only have one HDMI 2.1 port left, which won't be a problem if the Xbox Series X is your only HDMI 2.1 source. In terms of codec support, the LG CX cannot pass through DTS over eARC, whereas the Sony XH90 can, just in case experiencing DTS:X in-game is important to you. Let's sum up. When paired up with the Xbox Series X, the advantages enjoyed by the LG CX over the Samsung Q90T and the Sony XH90 are extended even further. The LG CX or C10 is the only television among these three which can support 4K 120Hz gameplay in Dolby Vision that the Xbox Series X will potentially offer in the future following a firmware update. Some people will continue to be put off by the potential risk of OLED burning, especially after long gaming sessions. Here, we are showing temporary image retention after displaying a 10% window at peak white in HDR for 20 seconds. But the burn-in test done by rthings.com and ourselves have demonstrated the risk to be minimal as long as you vary the content you display on screen. If you are still worried about playing HDR games on OLEDs for hours and hours, both the Samsung Q90T and the Sony XH90 are worthwhile alternatives with their own strengths and weaknesses. As you can probably see for yourself from this Forza demo loop running on these televisions, bright HDR scenes popped the most on the Samsung Q90T thanks to high peak brightness and QLED's high color volume. But the TV was let down by subpar screen uniformity and ineffective local dimming algorithm in game mode. The Sony XH90 or X900H was competent in most areas, though its inability to pass 4K resolution at 120Hz may alienate those who want fine detail in games to come through unscathed. Overall, we think the LG CX is the best TV for the Xbox Series X, due to OLED's ability to render true blacks without blooming or haloing artifacts, to maintain color accuracy without backlight contamination, and to deliver clean motion due to faster pixel response time than LED LCDs, on top of support for ALLM, VRR, 4K 120Hz, and HGIG. With this now settled, you can potentially win a 55-inch LG CX OLED in the giveaway sponsored by UK retailer box.co.uk, who also offers competitive prices on all types of technology products, ranging from TVs and soundbars to gaming PCs and laptops. All the best should you enter the giveaway. The link is in the YouTube description below, and happy Xbox gaming. If you would like to watch some of our other videos on HDMI 2.1 and next-gen consoles, I've created a playlist here if you would like to click on it, and I will see you in the next video.